Hello, everybody. It is so hot. I didn't think the Czech Republic was going to be so hot. It's unbelievable. This is like the equator.
It's like 100 degrees.
This is like Ecuador.
It's only since you arrived.
Yes?
Temperature went up.
I mean, it's my fault. I apologize.
It's usually raining here. So
how
if you
should we
brought
do
the
this?
sun, this is your seat.
Okay, they give me nuts. Look at
Yes,
this.
this is your food. The tea is being prepared. And this is
So
your...
they told me, I think they asked my office, what does he like? And they said he likes green tea and nuts. So they have nuts and green tea for me, which I'm willing to share with all of you.
It will be one and one.
Drink water,
Water's great, yeah.
sparkling is
Still. Please, thank you. Okay, do I need this? Is this the one I should do?
I think so. But I mean, many people speak English here, so it's just for the Czech translation.
Okay. And this is on? This is working?
yes.
I hope so too.
Ladies and gentlemen, let me just remind you quickly that this is Richard Gere. And
I forgot. She's doing this for me.
he is bringing us this year 3 movies. One has just celebrated 25th anniversary. That's Pretty Woman, which is going to be shown today at 11 p.m. at the Letní Kino, at the outside theater. And there are 2 brand new movies Mr. Gere is bringing, which is The Time Out of Mind, which is still going to have 2 more screenings besides Time Out of Mind, which is still going to be having 2 more screenings after the yesterday's opening night, and Frani, which is also going to have 2 more screenings towards the second part of the festival. So we obviously welcome all your film questions, starting right now. Mr. Nick. Are we ready?
Thanks. Right, okay, Nick Holdsworth from The Hollywood Reporter, so you don't need your headphones. Okay. Welcome to Carlo Vivari.
Thank you.
It's 30 years, well over 30 years, since you appeared in the Broadway play Bent, which they're now putting a new production of in Los Angeles.
No, I didn't know.
Yep. It's the first new production since the 1980 Broadway production. Can I ask you, when you played that role in a play which is rather controversial and very timely now, given the gay marriage vote in the US recently, or decision of the court, what advice were you given when you took that role? That was a controversial role to take, and yet that is often seen as a role which brought you to the attention of a wider audience and helped propel your career in film.
Every once in a while, somebody brings up how daring it was to do that, and for me, it wasn't. It was a brilliant play by Martin Sherman, and I like Martin and I like the director. It seemed like an important piece to me about the human yearning for love and how irrelevant it is if you're a man or a woman or an insect or a dog or whatever. We're all leaning towards love and connection. So that's the only thing I saw in it. I didn't see it because it was 2 gay characters. I didn't think it was dangerous for me at all. I didn't even think about it.
Did it change your career? I mean, there's this famous spoken word sex scene, which critics wrote about at the time.
Yeah.
I mean, do you feel that playing that role changed your career arc in some way or helped your career in some way?
I've never thought of my work as a career that way, and I just never have thought about as planning out a career, or it's just not the way I think. What it was a brilliant play and an opportunity to be on stage. I came from the stage, so of course it was wonderful to be able to live at home. I lived in New York, to do this wonderful play on Broadway with people that I wanted to work with. Beyond that, I honestly have never thought of career. Never made any choices that way.
Any thoughts about the play now being put on again?
Well, it was, when Marty wrote it, it was just in the very beginning of the HIV/AIDS crisis. So it resonated very much with that. And now, as you say, with the gay marriage issue. I don't know, is gay marriage legal here?
Yes,
It is, and has been for some time?
2006.
Really? So you're way ahead of us. Much more progressive country, Czech Republic.
So, Tiziana Ariko from the Austrian television.
Hold on.
It's English.
Oh, it's English.
Yes.
It just sounds different.
So you're here in Karlovy and you're presenting Pretty Woman, as the lady said before, but we see also 2 new films, and it shows a great variety of your acting. And yesterday you also got the Crystal Award for cinema contribution, for world cinema contribution. What does that prize mean to you?
What was the
What does the prize mean to you?
the prize?
Yeah.
Oh, as I said last night, you have an extraordinarily rich culture here. Everyone knows that. And a very interesting one of being between these 2 large, powerful cultures, the Germans and the Russians. And the dynamics of this over centuries, many centuries, has, I think, enriched who you are as people, enriched who you are as artists. The festival here is one of the most highly thought of festivals because it's really about the art. It's not so much about the song and dance of it, but it's filmmakers, it's serious filmmakers from around the world, but primarily Eastern Europe. So to be celebrated here in this place, but also in this very highly thought of festival is a great honor to me.
Hi there, another question in English. You don't need your headphones again.
I recognize that accent.
You do, it's good. Richard Moe from I for Film and BBC Culture Studio. I was curious last night, you mentioned that the most important role in your life is actually being a father. Yeah. But very recently, you've been going out to work rather a lot. You've had 4 films, I think, more or less back to back.
Yeah.
How do you manage to get your work-life balance in check? Is it quite tricky to do that?
Well, one thing is I live in New York, so making movies in New York, it's, I have fairly normal hours, and I usually insist on having my weekends off so that I can be with my son. And it turned out that almost all of these movies were in New York. We shot them in New York or Philadelphia, which is very close. The one movie was in India that I shot in Rajasthan, but it was short. I was only there a couple of weeks doing that. It's not that hard to balance these things, and you pick and choose. I choose to be with him. So I make choices to work on things that are close or not to work at all. That's fine. It was very rare to find 4 movies back to back that I wanted to do and they wanted me to do. I don't think I've ever done that before.
And just one last question from me, if I may. Hollywood has just kind of woken up to silver cinema for older people. And you've obviously played your part in the Second Best Marigold Hotel in that phenomenon. Do you think that is a good thing, that Hollywood sees that there are other niche audiences for certain kinds of cinema? And obviously that particular age group of which you and I are a member need to have films for them to see, as well as all the obvious blockbusters and comic strip stuff.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I don't want to go into a discourse about the movie business now, but certainly the realities are that the movies that are made for older moviegoers who don't particularly want to go to the high-tech, high-action movies, the parameters are fairly well prescribed. You have to have a small budget, right? You have to have a story, a real story, a narrative in the traditional sense of a narrative. And you have to have people who are recognizable, like we did in Marigold. I mean, they were all actors who were recognizable, and people, older citizens who want to see a movie would recognize them as actors that they would want to see. You can't buy an audience like that. You can with a high-tech movie. You can make it look so zappy and put so much advertising out there that you'll get an audience for 1 or 2 weeks and maybe pay back your production costs. But it's a whole different thing of making this a drama. I mean, the reality is you can't describe movies now as a drama because you'll never get financing. You've got to find out some other way of talking about it. And it's a huge change, certainly in my life, because when I started making movies, what are now independent movies were being made by studios. All of my movies were made at studios. But they were kind of adventurous, low-budget films. But there was a place within studios that they wanted to make movies like that. The people who were running the studios had great pride in making those movies, the adventurous small movie. But that's now the independent world. Hi.
Aleš Hudský, Strategie, Prague. Yesterday we have seen the edit of your roles. I missed Days of Heaven. How do you remember this role? I think it was quite an important one for you.
Yeah, it was interesting to me. I mean, I'm old enough now that they do, festivals do a lot of these compilations of my career. And I'm always amazed. They're kind of a Rorschach test of how people see me, of how they put together these clips. And it was, as I said, it was the first time I think I've seen one of these that didn't have Officer and a Gentleman, and it didn't have Days of Heaven. Days of Heaven was the first real movie that I made, and of course I remember seeing a movie in New York when I was beginning as an actor, and I was working in the theater regularly. I was able to support myself, and it was a movie. It was Terry's first movie. Badlands, thank you. So I saw Badlands, which had this incredible review in the New York Times. So I went to see it, and it was playing on 42nd Street. Didn't even have a decent theater that it was playing at. And I went to see this movie, and I remember coming back and talking to my agent and saying, this is someone I want to work with. I love that movie. And a few months later, I got a call that Terry Malick wanted to see me. And we started the process of auditioning and putting actors together so that these 3 actors that were going to be in the movie would fit together. So this went on forever. But then we made the movie, and it was one of those very special experiences. It's a beautiful film, not because I'm in it. It's a beautiful film. And it was meaningful to me to start my career at such a high quality level. I spoke to Terry just a few weeks ago, actually. We've been talking about some other things, not about movies, but other things. And we were reminiscing about that moment in our lives. And all of us, I think, at that point, were trying to figure out who we were as men and women, but as artists as well. Terry hadn't figured out his stamp of what a Terry Malick movie was. And he kind of figured it out with Days of Heaven. And for me also, it was like I hadn't worked with a camera before. It was a different way of approaching what I do as an actor. And Terry's way of working, which was insisting on a very soft kind of naturalism in the acting, was again an interesting way for me to begin my work as a film actor. So it was very, very important. It continues to be very important to me, this movie.
And what is your attitude or remembering of completely different role of Tora-san, of a lovable loser in a Japanese commercial for Orangina, which you have done? And what is basically your attitude towards commercials?
My attitude towards commercials is that's how I fund my foundation. All that money goes to my foundation. Always has. So, I find benign things to do. I don't sell liquor, I don't sell cigarettes, I don't sell anything that's going to hurt anybody. And they've been very generous to my foundation, so I'm happy to do it. Nice people, my son likes the product.
Hi, Richard. I'm coming here to Israel. You made an amazing performance in Owen Moverman movie. I hope you will win the Oscar. You made 2 films lately with Israeli directors, Owen and Joseph Sider. So how was the experience? Do you think they are unique because they're Israelis?
Maybe they're a little more complex because they're Israelis, yes. You know, I tend to be drawn, interesting, to these countries, rich countries, who are, through history, have been in some kind of political and cultural jeopardy. I think it enriches the texture of culture, the problems that are presented because of that. Makes people, their thinking deeper, their emotions deeper. Maybe not having the luxury of relaxing. But there is a certain tension there that I think is good for drama. It's good for what we do, for novelists, for musicians, for filmmakers. I think it's a good fertile ground for that. In terms of Oren, you know, Oren and I met. I mean, I was aware of Oren. Someone had sent me a script that he had co-written a long, long time ago, and I admired the script. I decided not to make the movie, but I noted his name, and then he co-wrote the movie that Todd Haynes made for on Bob Dylan, and that's when we got to know each other. I'm Not There. I don't know if it was even seen here.
Yes, it was. It was actually performed at the festival a few years ago. Yeah,
great. Also a film that I think is very special. And, so Oren and I became friends then. And then when I had bought this script of, which now is Time Out of Mind, and I got it a decade ago. I think 12 years I've been working on this movie. Oren and I just ran into him somewhere, and he said, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" And I said, "Well, I have the script. I can't quite figure out how to make it work. There's an essence there that is important." And I said, "There's a book that kind of struck me as the template of how to make this movie, and it was by a homeless man named Cadillac Man in New York. And the book was called Land of Lost Souls. And it was his life story, but it was done in a very artless way. It was just the facts. This happened, that happened. It was very dry, but within the dryness, it was so real that it became very emotional, reading this book, exceptional. That gave me the approach of how to make this movie. And Oren, again, felt it from this book also. And we took, some essential qualities from this guy's life and the way he presented his life and his emotions and made this movie. Oren and I have a very special connection. We're already working on a couple of other things. And as you know, he produced the movie with Joseph Cedar. Joseph Cedar is another story. Joseph is, I think clearly, he's the best Israeli film director right now. And is well known for Footnote, I think was his last movie, and Beaufort, another movie before that, who've been playing the art festivals. Joseph is an extraordinary writer. When you read his script, the script of Oppenheimer's Strategies that I made, it was like reading fine literature. It was so thought out, so perfect. The writing, the dialogue, the descriptions were really, in themselves, a piece of art. And we had an extraordinary time, also collaboration, working with Joseph. One of my special, maybe in the top 10 of my favorite filmings was with Joseph.
The lady there? Okay, go ahead.
Yes. Hello, my name is Rejka Salka. I am from Hungary, from Magyar Narancs, and I have a question. I really liked the movie yesterday. It was an extremely brave movie, I think so. And I would like you to ask now, you explained a bit more about how it was actually getting to be a movie, but how was the shooting? You said it was a very short time you used to shoot the movie, but I guess there were some people, unprofessionals, who were in the shelters and all this. How was to be between them? How was the preparation? How did you put some movements, some signs? Because you were extremely convincing for me, actually. And I want to ask also that if after being ready with the movie, some parts stayed with you in your life, could you get out of it? Because for me it was very, very deep.
I need about an hour and a half to answer that question. I don't know where to begin. There's a group in New York called the Coalition for the Homeless. That is a nonprofit NGO in New York, and I've been working with them for about 10 years. So I have been in those shelters for a long, long time. The Coalition is one of the two groups. There's a Legal Aid Society and the Coalition for the Homeless that are allowed in the shelters. Nobody else gets in. And I had to have a special pass to get in as a special inspector for the Coalition for the Homeless. And as I spent more time with them, understood the rhythms and the sounds and the flavors of being in a place like that, I started to feel how to tell that story, but also this responsibility to tell it as naturally and realistically as possible. What I did not want to do is do a traditional kind of television movie. It was a television movie kind of plot. And the original script I bought was more like that. And in fact, there was a court case. The second half of the movie took place in court. It became kind of a normal movie. I had no interest in that. But there was the character himself interested me, and the relationship with the black guy interested me. So that was the core that we started with when we did this massive rewrite. The idea, one, just in terms of filming and the visuals of it, there's a photographer working in the 50s and 60s, mostly, named Saul Leiter. Not a famous photographer, but an extraordinary one, who, when everyone else was doing black and white street work, like Bresson and Cornel Kappa and all these other guys that were doing street photography, this guy was in black and white. This guy's doing color. And he was using glass and windows to shoot through layers of things constantly. And a really beautiful work. I mean, extraordinary. Even today, I was looking at the book of his work just a week or two ago again, and I was amazed at how unique and special and layered his work was. So I think that was the impetus for the visual frame that we had. We carried glass with us all the time to put in front of the camera, to create reflections and layers. We also had lenses. I mean, I wish that Oren was here to describe to you his process, but we had two very long lenses. One was a 600 millimeter and the other was a 900 millimeter. And those are the only lenses we used in the entire movie. And that also stacks up energy. If we were doing that here in this room, this entire room would be stacked on top of each other. So you get this really dense feeling. And it was to be in New York City with these kind of lenses, and the energy of a city like New York, and having it stacked up, and then have someone still inside of that is very powerful in terms of imagery. The idea from the beginning was that I would be on the streets, and the filmmaking footprint would be invisible. So the filmmaker, the camera, and the director and the technicians were always in either a storefront or on a roof or on an apartment, shooting out of a window, or if we had to be they had to be on the street, it was under a men-at-work tent. So no one was aware of a camera, and it was only me out on the streets, and with real people. Nothing was set up. There was nothing where we had extras trained to walk through. That was real. Every time I'm on the streets, or in the train station, or anywhere, nothing was set up. It's just me out there with New York energy. And so the first day that we were going to do a test, and it was a test of, we were all kind of nervous about it. We were calling it test. Costume, hair, camera stuff. And it was going to be in Astor Place and down in Greenwich Village. Very busy place in the village in New York. And this was a very important test because the whole idea of our film was that I was going to be out on the streets, and if it didn't work, we had no movie. I was a little nervous about this because these are not places that normally I, as Richard Gere, can walk around. For whatever reason, I can't explain it, I have a lot of attention when I'm on the streets. And so he set up the cameras in a Starbucks, and I was around the corner with an AD and a walkie-talkie, kind of an FBI walkie-talkie. And so we were communicating, said, okay, we're ready. Come out into Astor Place now. So I came around the corner, and I was totally in character. And I stood on a street corner, and I kind of had my hat down. I was a little nervous about it all. No one was paying any attention to me. Nobody. And I had a coffee cup, and I started asking for change. It's just simple. I wasn't attacking anyone, just spare change. Can you help me out? Spare change. Can you help me out? We shot for 45 minutes, because we were shooting digitally too, so we could do these long takes. 45 minutes. No one paid any attention to me. And some people put some money into my cup, but they didn't make eye contact. I think I made like $2.50. I was very unsuccessful as a bum on the street. And that shot is actually in the movie. Towards the end of the movie, that part of that shot, the test shot we did, is in the movie right now. But for me, it was an incredibly profound experience. Obviously, in my life, there's a lot of expectations on me. You know, I'm the movie star coming here, so you have questions. I'm supposed to have important answers and the rest of this. The same guy on a street corner with a coffee cup, no one pays any attention to. And if anything, the guy on the street corner is probably closer to who I really am than the movie star in a tuxedo and a red carpet. So for me personally, it was a profound and deep experience. Also to see the energy of people, being the recipient of the energy of people coming close to someone on the street corner. I saw people go through such changes. From 2 blocks away, I could see them making a decision about, oh, here's someone panhandling, he wants money. And already they're going, I don't want to give him any money. And then, I don't want to give him any money. Why is he asking for money? I feel guilty I'm not giving him money. Why does he make me feel guilty? What right does he have to make me feel guilty not giving him money? And all this is going on inside of people's heads and their hearts as they're walking towards me. And people often, they talk about people on the street as being invisible, and that's partly true, but it's the imagery for me that is closer to it is a black hole. It's more like being a black hole in the universe, is that people are afraid of being sucked into a black hole of failure and misery and pain. And so that sense of dislocation, of being a black hole in the universe, obviously makes people crazy. Mental illnesses start to arise. I think we see it in this character as well, how quickly he descends into mental states that are outside of the reality structure. Sorry?
The role of the father.
Yeah?
How was it for you?
To play the father to Jenna in the movie. Well, very emotional. You know, I mean, first of all, she's a wonderful actress and one of the best actresses I've ever worked with. The way Oren wrote it and the way we played this movie, there's a lot of silences. And most of our lives are in the silences. The emotions of our lives are really in the silences. They're the emotions that are welling up inside of us before they get expressed. That's where we wanted to live in this movie. Whatever the pains were, whatever the mistakes that were made, the slights, the anger, the lack of care, the abandonments, the betrayals, all those things that people go through, and these two people, the father and daughter in the movie, went through, I think become palpable in the silences in that bar. That bar scene is just, it's hard to take. For me to watch now, it's hard for me to take. But I think very real. The silences are more important than anything else.
Anna Nemetova from the Faculty of Mass Media and Communication, Slovakia. And in these two movies, in one you played the homeless person, and in the other one, the millionaire. So I would like to ask you which one was harder to play, and also if you
Well, a billionaire, because I've never been a billionaire. I've been homeless.
And also, if you find something similar in these two characters.
You know, someone else brought it up to me. I can't. You brought it up. It was you. I should have been quoting you because I was saying some really intelligent journalist said, but it was you. She said, why don't you say it? Say what you told me.
I said that none of them has a job, right? Neither of them has a job, and they are both quite unhappy, so I find them quite similar. That, I guess, there was another thing which I can't recall right now. But
there were other things we talked about, but she was much more eloquent yesterday.
Well,
anyhow, yeah. Look, I think in both of these movies, by the end of Time Out of Mind, I don't think you're thinking about a homeless man. You're not thinking of labels. I think you're seeing into a human being, human beings, but primarily this one human being, and feeling that yearning. It's a mysterious thing, this yearning for home, for family, for who are my people? Where's my village? My place in the universe. It's a very mysterious yearning we all have. It comes from a very primitive place. I think that's what one is feeling at the end of this movie. Not the homelessness, not the clothes, it's irrelevant. We're feeling something deeply human that we all share. And hopefully. Use the microphone.
I think that it's not about the money, it's about the society who's around us.
Yeah, well, you see the disconnection.
Yeah,
but I think we wanted to do a film, we weren't watching it, but we were in it. All the choices that were made in terms of the sound, in terms of the visuals we were using, were to immerse us in the life of someone who is dislocated, who is outside of time and space, time out of mind. He's not going anywhere. You know, the most energetic he gets is when they're filling out the paperwork, and he's, look, I'm just tired and hungry. Simple. He's like an animal. I'm just tired and hungry. Fill out the forms, do whatever you want. I don't care. I just need to sleep. That's very relatable to all of us. And it doesn't even, non-humans, animals, insects feel these same things. This is the mysterious center of who we are. And it's not about society, particularly. When we were making this movie, it wasn't a societal kind of expose of how cold modern culture is. But in a sense, when one stops, when you don't have someplace to go, when you don't have a job you're going to, when your day isn't programmed, something else starts to happen in your consciousness. And in a strange way, there's something monk-like about this character. And it's not obvious, but there's something, he's out of, what is the word? In a way, he's a renunciate. He's not moving in the rhythms of the world around him. He doesn't have any high expectations of becoming rich or famous. He's pretty much existing in the moment. Now, the context of it is he's homeless, and he's trying to find a bed and some food. But I think there's some deeper things that start to emerge in this and in the way we decided to do it, which is also, it's not highly dramatic the way we told the story, but it's dense. It's dense. It's contrapuntal instead of linear.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
Inesa Pliskačevskaya, Belarus Today newspaper. I used to live 12 years in China and worked as a journalist. And you are not very welcomed in China, to say the least. And
I'm welcomed by the Chinese people.
Yes,
yes, not
you
by
are.
the Chinese government.
But you cannot go there.
No, I can't. I haven't been able to go since 1993. But you guys can understand that. The Czech Republic understands communism very well.
So my question is about your friendship with Dalai Lama and Dalai Lama himself, because he is not very young and we are all mortal. Is he think about what happened when they start searching for his reincarnation?
Sure.
Because, you know, I'm absolutely sure that you know the story that happened when they started to search reincarnation for Panchen Lama, what had happened with the first finding. So, and maybe when they start searching for his reincarnation, maybe it will be the starting of the process of being closer of Tibetan Buddhism and Chinese government, because when I was in China, there were a lot of rumors that there's something happening behind the scenes, that there are a lot of negotiations between Dalai Lama and Chinese government.
No.
No?
No.
You sure?
Yes. Yeah. The... That means I'm not supposed to talk? Maybe. Yeah, look, the lady's bringing up an episode with the Panchen Lama. Panchen Lama, the previous Panchen Lama, these are all very long stories to get into, but the Panchen Lama stayed in Tibet when the Chinese invasion came in 1950. Sometimes we say 1949, but it started in 1949, but most of it was in 1950. There was an uprising against the Chinese in the capital of Lhasa in 1959, and that's when the Dalai Lama escaped. And he was a young man at the time. The Panchen Lama, who was considered maybe the second highest Lama, stayed and spent many years being humiliated and tortured in struggle sessions. I don't know how they translated into Czech, but same kind of thing I'm sure you had here with the Soviets, struggle sessions and humiliations and jailing and torture and all that. He got out of jail many years later and became the leader of Tibetan Buddhism, but he was also a member of the Communist Party. He started to speak out against the Chinese treatment of Tibetans, and a very famous paper in 1959 that he was to deliver. And mysteriously, he died that same year, 1989, sorry. And so the reincarnation was found. This is a long story. I'm making it as short as I can. Reincarnation was found and was named by lamas inside of Tibet and also by the Dalai Lama in exile. The Chinese communist authorities kidnapped this boy who was 6 years old at the time. And he has not been seen since.
With all his family. With all his family.
With his family and also with the high lamas from that district that were part of the discovery. They're all gone. No one has seen them. And we still are asking for information about the Panchen Lama. The U.S. government is still asking for information about the Panchen Lama. In the meantime, the Chinese presented a young boy who they said was their Panchen Lama. So he's been paraded around as the Panchen Lama, but the Tibetans don't pay any attention to him because they know it's bogus. There is a fear, and it's a based in reality fear that the Chinese will try to co-opt the next incarnation of the Dalai Lama. In fact, the Chinese Communist Party has said that it's only up to the Chinese to decide who the Dalai Lama will incarnate as, which is a little bizarre because by law, the Communist Party is atheistic. They don't believe in religion in any way whatsoever. So there's a drama going on now about who will decide who is the next Dalai Lama. The Dalai Lama has said, well, first of all, he's not going to incarnate inside of China if it's still controlled by the Chinese communists. And in any event, it's up to him where he and how he incarnates, not the Chinese Communist Party. So there's this absurd line of reasoning and declarations from the the Communist Party. But again, you have such experience with the absurdities of a Communist Party. You'll understand the position of the Tibetans quite well. It will change eventually, as it changed here. And there will be a Prague Spring in Tibet. Things will change. We have to be patient, and we have to keep the Tibetan culture alive in the meantime, because the Chinese are doing their best to completely eradicate it.
I'm afraid this is it. I'm sorry.
What?
But congratulations. We
Tell you
discussed
what,
the
we'll
politics
take
only.
One more.
Okay, thanks.
I don't want to end
Excellent.
on something as down as that.
Okay. Sure, so you choose. Okay.
Hello, Jakub Schweiner, Internet Movie Database. I would like to ask you whether you heard a part of your movie dubbed into Czech language.
I'm sorry, say it again.
Have you ever heard a part of your movie dubbed into Czech?
No, never have. What's the voice like?
You should. I think from
Is it
80...
anything like my voice? No.
Quite different, but from 80% Vladislav Beneš, and he does you quite well. And you two, I think you two are...
The one I don't like is a very nice man. I've met him in Italy. But there's one guy who does me, De Niro, Stallone, Dustin Hoffman. We all have the same voice. And it's like this. It's down here like this.
And he said for Czech TV that he thinks you think a lot when you play, and I agree. And is there a movie that wasn't so thoughtful for you, that it was easy without so many thoughts when you played?
I'm not quite sure what we're asking here.
Tak mi to řekněte, já
Do it in Czech. Do it in Czech to her and she'll translate.
Vladislav Beneš řekl pro Českou televizi, že Richard Gere u všech rolí jakoby dost přemýšlí a jestli je nějaká role, která byla pro něho snadná, řekněme, u které nemusel tolik přemýšlet.
Ještě. If there is a role you didn't have to think so much.
What?
So much when you played.
Let's
an easy role.
Yeah, just like without any deep thought.
What's the question?
This is the question.
Roles that might be easier to do, that you don't require so much thought.
But what's the
From your career.
Is he asking if I should do more?
No, if there ever was. Thank you.
Were there any roles that you did where you weren't required to think a lot? For instance...
We'll put it together slowly.
I'm not quite sure the question. I can't imagine doing something without thinking. So it's like, whatever we do, there's some kind of a thought process. I think there's a simpler question you're asking. I'm drawn to complex characters.
Yes.
So of course, it's more interesting playing someone who. I can only play something that somehow relates to me. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, it doesn't work. Mm-hmm. So there has to be some kind of an emotional affinity. And sometimes it's also in the rhythms of the way the brain works. I've had characters, I'm sure, that the rhythms of their mental activity are closer to mine, or their emotional reality is closer to mine. Their emotional experience is closer to my experience. Mm-hmm. But it's obviously more fun when you're reaching a bit into territory you don't know, where you're taxed as to trying to figure out why a character is motivated to do this, why he somehow these choices for the character, he goes here instead of here, and you have to go deep into the psychology of a character to make it real that decision happened. Much more fun to do that. And is it easier or I don't know. Sometimes that's easy. Fun is fun. Fun is easy. Fun is easy. It doesn't mean it's not complex. In fact, maybe the most fun things are the complex things in life.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you.